There is less than 30 days left until the release of TDX, so it makes sense to make a video about everything we know and what you need to know about TDX. Before we get into the main things about this game, we have to know the base mechanics that every future TDX player will face. Two different mechanics are introduced. One mechanic is the two-path mechanics. It is where every tower will get two paths to upgrade and you can only max one path and only upgrading only a few times on the other paths. This is probably based off of Tower Blitz having this idea, seeing that they also have two paths, so it's not entirely unique. The second mechanic is the range mechanic. In other tower defense game, you can place a tower anywhere as long as they can reach the path. However, in this game, you have to be smart on where you place them because objects can block a tower's viewpoint. If an object is in the tower's range, it will block the range and will not shoot through it. However, there are no cliff towers in this game and towers can go on any elevation. John said that cliff towers won't have any ranger blocked, depending on their surroundings. This game has logic that makes the game harder, which brings harder mechanics in the future. However, we will cover that later. An extra mechanic that I want to bring out is the stealth mechanic. The mechanic is like the hidden enemies in other game, however, the mechanic can be applied to any enemy. It is to show more variations of enemies instead of two boring enemies that are different. It may be possible for bosses to have the stealth factor, but we don't have anything about it confirmed. I'm not going to go in detail about the modes itself, since John has videos about it, but I will go in detail that people will need to know when going into game modes. Bosses in each mode won't be like most bosses, and they only attack whenever they detect a tower in range, and cannot be outsmarted because they will attack crowds in their range. However, there is no RNG, meaning that boss attacks are in the same order, meaning that you mostly won't die because of chance. Bosses also have attacks that can either lower damage, increase fire rate, or decrease range. Easy mode will be easy, beatable with the starter tower ranger, but only on easy maps. Although ranger may seem OP, with path 1 being about 80 DPS or higher, and path 2 mainly being splash damage, easy mode doesn't mean that you can do absolutely anything with just ranger. This game has spam enemies, needing path 2. But also bringing stronger enemies, necessary for path 1. After easy mode, intermediate won't be as simple as you might think. This mode introduces a few mechanics that are game-changing, and affect the future mode. One of the mechanics is immunity, which basically means that enemies can be immune to any bullet type like regular bullets, laser bullets, explosives, and others. This can also be on bosses because the Eradicator Mark II has 250,000 health, and has explosive proof, which might not sound that bad, but seeing that spamming Javelin to kill Eradicator Mark I, which had 180,000 health, barely killed him on the hard map. Another mechanic is the jam mechanic, where two enemies can use it. One of them is the jammer, which at a certain point of time, it sends out a jammer signal which lowers fire rate of towers and cancels out their abilities, and Eradicator Mark I, where he constantly jams the signal every time, which can be very annoying. The final mechanic that is introduced into intermediate is the death mechanic. The mechanic involves the towers having a certain amount of health and gets more health equal to the amount of money you spend and the looks of it. This idea isn't completely original, because other games do have it, but work a little differently. As I am posting this video, the only enemies that can damage or kill your towers are Eradicator, and the mini-boss in intermediate mode, Predator. Unfortunately, we don't know the next modes like Nightmare until TDX releases. However, we do know names of a new mode called Ultra Mode, and a fifth mode. I made this its own chapter because this is a very unique concept, and the most unique concept because of how these work. I will first start with naval, which is water. 2 towers are confirmed to be naval towers, which is the patrol boat and the warship, which I will call battleship. For certain towers, their boundaries will be larger depending on the size of them. Patrol boat has a larger boundary for its size, and boats don't usually float around shallow water to either fish or attack. We don't know much detail about it, but will be in it. The big boy is the battleship, which has a massive boundary and large size. It is about over 6 times the player's size and will be the most overpowered tower in the game. However, it will be by far the most expensive tower in the game, taking a long time to grind for and very expensive in-game, being over 500k to max out on both paths. Here is the battleship concept to see detail. Now we talk about air towers, which is the helicopters, C-130, and AC-130. There isn't a lot to talk about the helicopters, except we see them in the TDX trailer, and they don't go in circles unlike other tower defense games do. We now talk about the interesting ones, which I will call them C and AC. The C is a plane that is part of the farm tower, and how it works is that every wave, an aircraft spawns and drops crates and gives either money or health, depending on what path you upgrade. The AC is a gunship with dual miniguns and other guns on it. It does insane damage and is not a tower. Another is the A-10, but we don't know anything about it.